Hi, and welcome to the interviews with the Hunting Masters, brought to you by the OutdoorInsiders.com and the Sneak Tech Sneak Boot. Today we have with us on the phone a good friend of mine. He's an outfitter, pretty much guides all over the damn world. Actually, you kind of go everywhere, and that's Zach Knowles of Xtreme Outfitters. How are you, man?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Good, man. Just getting ready for season's coming up hot here. I got 10 days, I think. Yeah, 10 days before I leave for my elk hunt in Utah, and then then it's just kind of go from there on out.
Yeah, it'll be here before we know it. I can't believe it's already time to start again. It seems like we just got done.
Yeah. More and more, and I stopped hunting in the spring a while ago. Several years ago, since I had kids. Actually, I don't really do the spring hunts anymore, but still, I mean, my big game season's been going to February, and then I do some coyote calling and stuff like that here around the house, and little stuff here and there, but not, I don't go on any destination hunts. And I don't know, it just seems like I start in July because I've been going to California the last few years, so it's nice though. I don't like having that big of a break in between.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I feel
I know a lot of people think when they hear about a hunting season or like being an outfitter, being a guy, they're like, oh, you only work a couple months out of the year. It must be nice to have the other 6 or 8 months off. And it's not like that. By the time if you do any kind of scouting or anything through the summer,
yeah.
it's more than likely almost year round. But even if you're just talking about the hunting, you get started in August, early September, and then with a lot of the aoudad and the stuff that we're doing in West Texas now, we hunt all the way through May.
Right.
And then, some of when we've done the desert sheep tags in Texas and stuff, we hunt those in July. So you're only down to a month or two break. And
right. It's that early? It's July for the desert sheep?
yeah, the way the desert sheep work in Texas is they do the surveys in August and they issue all the tags, and those tags are good from September 1st to July 31st of the next year. So it's an 11-month long tag.
Okay.
And a lot of times, by the time that they get the tag sold and stuff, it's on into the winter, and then those sheep rut in July and August. And so, on 3 different occasions, we've actually waited until about the middle of July to hunt them when they were rutting, and so it's pretty hot then. And
that's crazy.
It's a good time to hunt them. So yeah, between that and then, like I said, hunting aoudad all the way through. I think this year we finished up the last aoudad hunt the last week of May, so not a big break.
Pretty hot that time of year, though, especially in Texas. Well, before we get rolling to some questions, I'm actually you brought up a good point about how people think it's not a year-round gig. We're going to get into that a little bit. Why don't you give us a little rundown about yourself, so those who don't know who you are can get acclimated with you.
All right. Well, my name is Zach Knowles, like you said, and I own and operate Xtreme Outfitters. I actually live in Tennessee. I think about as much time elsewhere as I do here, but I get my mail here in Tennessee, and I'm 27 years old. I've been around this business pretty much my whole life. My dad was an outfitter for 10 or 12 years in Canada, and so I grew up, being around that and seeing him operate those deer and bear hunts up there, and always had an interest in it. And then hunted growing up, and when I got in high school, I got pretty big into baseball and horses and rodeos and roping, and so I didn't hunt a whole lot for several years there, and was just off doing other things. And then I guess I was 21 or 2, I decided I wanted to start hunting some more, and pretty much wanted a way that I could make a living, being able to hunt and then being able to still rope and do the rodeo stuff I wanted to do also. And so it's just kind of a good fit, and just really a couple really big breaks and chance encounters and a lot of luck. I kind of fell into some pretty unique deals and met some really good guys and had some success early on, thanks to a lot of different things, and it all just really kind of fell into place. So a lot of people, I get the question all the time, how do you get started, or how did you get started? And I can tell you some things and some tips and tricks and things that you need to do, but it's like anything else. It just a lot of it, like I said, just kind of fell into place. And I look
Yeah, the
back now,
stars have to align.
I'm not really sure how I got here, but
Yeah. So Zach's being a little modest in his description of himself. He actually, he goes, you've been to like Turkey, you've guided in all kinds of places for all different types of animals and done sheep hunts and not just Texas and other places and do elk hunts and antelope and deer and pretty much if it's got four legs and you could stick a tag on it, you're hunting it. So,
yeah, and a little bit, I guess, a little bit about my business that's allowed me to do some things like that is, um, mine is while I've got places, I lease a bunch of land in Kansas where we hunt mule deer and whitetails, and I've got a bunch of land in Texas where we hunt the aoudad. And I've got a ranch in Mexico, and so there's places that we go back to the same year, kind of like a typical outfitter, and have new clients and repeat clients and everything else, but a lot of my business has moved towards I've got a really good group of clients now, and it's not one group of friends from the same town, but just the group as a whole. And they'll tell me, like last year, one of them told me, "Hey, me and three of my buddies, we want to go kill giant mule deer somewhere. We don't care where it's at. We don't know anything about it. Just make it happen. Here's our budget." And so I went, found a ranch in Mexico, leased it, set it all up, all the way down to booking the plane tickets, and just told them where to
mhm.
show up. And then I go with them, helped them out. We had a local outfitter down there that we worked with. And so a lot of times I'll go do other stuff like that, and I'll actually work with another outfitter in the area. But these guys want me to go with them. I know how they can walk. I know how they can hike. I know what kind of food they like, all the,
Right.
and some of them, like that particular group of guys, they've told me we're not going anywhere in the world if you don't go with us. And so that's how I've gotten to do, I got to go to Alaska and do a Dall sheep hunt, same kind of deal. Turkey for the ibex. That's how I got started in Mexico. Just all kinds of neat stuff like that. So I get to
Right.
go over, and then doing that, I get to see a lot of cool stuff and things that you typically wouldn't get to do if you were, just an elk outfitter on a ranch in Colorado. So,
Right. Yeah. When you're hunting in one state, your own home state, yeah, that's fine and dandy. You become a real expert at that one thing, but to branch out and do all those stuff, you're basically a boutique guide.
right. Yeah, usually a
It's
book
kind
camp.
of cool though. I mean, if I had a way to do it, if I was going to do it, that's the way I'd like to do it. I mean, part of it for me to do what I do is I love the adventure. I love to go see new places, do new things. So,
Yep.
you know, hunting the same piece of ground year in, year out doesn't, I mean, I like that too because I do that here in my home state, but it's not, I don't think I could do that for a job.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely places where I like to go, year after year, and I keep talking about the aoudad in Texas. That's probably my favorite thing to hunt, aside from maybe getting to go do a desert sheep. But so I mean, there's stuff like that that I look forward to, and I love going back to the same places and hunting the same stuff every year. But it's neat to get to mix it up and throw in some other stuff too. So,
Cool. Well, so being this guy that goes and hunts multiple species in multiple states and multiple countries and all types of different landscapes and stuff like that, what are some what are some ways that you go about your scouting? What are some like tips and tricks that you could share with people that they could adapt into their own skill set to help them, you know, plan out of state hunts or do, stuff that's not in their backyard?
right. Um, honestly, a lot of times when I go do stuff like that, I don't get a chance to go scout, or if I do, it's just a couple days. I'll try to fly in a couple days earlier, drive in, and spend a few days learning the terrain. And so a lot of it I have to rely on. One of the things I've had some success doing, and it's kind of a fine line because one of my biggest pet peeves is somebody calling and asking me, or seeing somebody else ask somebody, well, where'd you kill that, or what unit were you in, or what mountain are you in, or where do I need to go to find out whatever. So
Right.
I don't want to just call somebody and say, hey, where's all the best spots to go, find a bull in this unit. But if you'll call, like I've called game and fish officers before, called biologists, people that don't necessarily have a tag or have a business interest in it. Call
Hmm.
and ask those people. A lot of times they're a lot of help, and they can tell you where historically elk have been that time of the year, or deer or whatever. And so ask those kind of people. If you know somebody that, has say hunted that unit in the past and maybe they don't have a tag there this year, call it. And I always try to preface the conversation by saying, I'm not asking for your secret spots. I'm not asking for you to, give up any of your information that you don't want to, but just ask for help in some places, but be polite about it. And if someone, declines or is not as helpful as you thought they were going to be, don't be rude about it and get
Mm-hmm.
mad at it. So I do that a lot of times. And then, looking at maps, I use like Google Earth and the OnX maps and stuff, any kind of the satellite imaging maps. And a lot of what I do for the Western hunting and mountain hunting in general, and that's kind of ties into another question. People always ask me, well, how do you go hunt somewhere and guide somebody where you've never been? And kind of my whole strategy is climb to the highest point I can find and sit down with my 15 power binoculars and just start looking. And you'll eventually learn places where animals are more likely to be in different types of terrain. And if you just start looking in those places and you can glass good enough, you'll find them.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of mine is just, try to narrow in on a spot with a map or some intel from somebody where animals should be, and then just get in there and find them.
Right. Now, are you when you're looking at maps, other than looking for high points and stuff like that, are you looking for specific landscape features or anything that you know that you typically can correlate? Okay, I always see elk in this. I always see deer in this type of terrain features and whatnot. Or
Uh,
do you not even get that detailed until you get there?
I do, well, a couple things. Yes and no. One of the first things, especially in the West and the farther south you get, Texas, there, I know you're really familiar with Arizona, New Mexico, is you got to get around some water.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you don't have water, and a lot of, we were actually talking about that this weekend with some guys at a sports show here in the East. How if you go lease a piece of ground in the East, or you're going to go somewhere and hunt some public land, most of the time around here, water would never cross your mind because there's water everywhere. So if you're
Right.
looking for a place to go hunt, you don't think, well, I wonder if they have a pond or a creek or whatever, because it's everywhere. Well, out west, it's totally different than that. And if you don't have water, you don't have animals. And there's been ranches I went and looked at to lease to hunt deer or elk or whatever, and you get there and there's no water, and you might as well just, go somewhere else because the animals are not going to be there. So if it's somewhere in an arid climate, in a desert setting, look for some water, whether it be tanks or drinkers or windmills or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
so you can look for stuff like that on a map, and then also depending on the time of the year that it is, if I'm hunting late season elk in Montana, I'm going to look for the thickest, nastiest places as far off a road where I can find. And that's going to be where the bulls are going to be. After they've been hunted for 4 months, they're not going to be standing in the flats down the road. So I can look and
Mm-hmm.
cut all that stuff off and start looking for deep, nasty pockets of timber. And, if I'm hunting, Kansas mule deer in the early season in September, I'm going to look for the milo fields and the wheat fields and the places, the food sources where I know they're going to be, and they're still going to be grouped up. And, if I'm hunting them late season, kind of the same thing. I'm going to start looking farther off the road and deeper places where there's maybe some food left where those bucks are going to go. And so, some of it is just knowing what you're after and their patterns throughout the year. And that's another thing that a lot of times, like Game and Fish or somebody might help you with. Ask them
Mm-hmm.
where do those bulls go after they get done rutting. And so that's a lot of what I look for.
That's always my first question to um, game and fish guys or biologists or whatever. I always approach it from a biologist standpoint. I always say to them, what are their behaviors? What is the type of food that they look for? Um, you know, what are their pattern types at this time of year? And then it's not asking them for a spot. It's
Right,
asking them for information that you could find your own spot.
right.
And then being able to decipher those things on a map is a whole different thing, but or Google Earth. But yeah, no, that's a really good way. I mean, that's the way I go about it. And more and more I talk to people on the podcast, that's basically all the same guys that having high success, man, that's what they're doing.
Yep.
It's learning animal behavior and whatnot. And it changes from region to region and area to area. And that's learning those nuances at each place, but the core stuff is always there. And you can always start with the core stuff and then pick up, the nuances, so to speak. So,
Yep.
cool.
Yeah, and a lot of it too is just when you when you've hunted when you've hunted a certain animal a lot and you've hunted, a certain time of year or a certain area, a lot of it too is, when you get there, I don't know if you call it an instinct or a feeling or whatever you want to call it, but a lot of it too is just getting there and looking around and seeing what the weather's like and seeing what the, movement's like and just pick a spot and go with it. And, a lot of times you'd be surprised what your own instinct will do for you. Um, I
Yeah.
don't know. And a lot of it too, especially in the later seasons, is you got to be willing to get out and outwalk some guys and get back in there and get off the roads. And, um, those, the big elk and the big deer and the big whatever, all the ones that stand out along the road, they're going to get killed and not going to
Mm-hmm.
get big. And, those big old bulls and bucks and rams and all that, they didn't get big by standing down 400 yards off the road. And so,
No.
some of that stuff, we killed a big bull in Colorado last year, that I had found that was way back off the road, and some guys actually we watched this bull 4 or 5 days before the season. I had an older hunter with me, he was 80 years old, and
Wow.
the night before the season opened, some guys pulled up behind us and saw the bull and basically told us to, screw off. They were going to go past us anyways because it was public land. And I said, I understand it's public land, but we've been sitting on this bull 5 days, and this guy's 80 years old, and we were actually kind of in the back corner of the unit, up against the Utah fence. And I said, I'm not trying to block off a whole bunch of the unit. I said, it's just this one canyon. And anyways, they said, we're going anyways, and so they had to turn around and go back down and get their rifles. And so as soon as they left, we had all our stuff with us. And we were planning on going back to a base camp that night, and I told my hunter, I said, if you want to kill this bull, we're going to have to take off walking now and spend the night up here somewhere and get on that bull. Because I said they'll outwalk us in the morning because, this guy couldn't walk very good. And so we actually took off right there and walked 3 or 4 miles in the dark, spent the night under a bush and killed that bull at first light. And as soon as we walked up to him and hadn't even really touched him yet, we're just standing over looking at him. And those 4 guys came walking up, and they were a bit shocked and wanted to know how we got in there that quick. And so, I mean, there's times like that when it may be a little uncomfortable, a little hard, but
Yeah.
I didn't want to walk 5 miles in the dark, sleep under a bush, but we did what we had to do to kill the bull. So
Yeah. I'm sure the 80-year-old guy didn't want to do that either.
no, I know but he was sure excited when he got it done. So.
Oh, I bet. The world owed that bull to you guys after that.
We did work for that one.
Oh,
And then
jeez.
I had to get the whole thing out by myself because the poor old guy couldn't carry anything, and he actually had some altitude sickness, and
Oh, jeez.
it turned into a wreck, but we got it done. So
Nice. So you started saying something earlier about having that intuition or that feeling. When you walk in, let's talk about deer for a second. You walk into the woods, and what is that like? What is the if you see a couple different things when you walk in there, and when you see these couple different things, you say to yourself, or when you get to a glassing spot, for instance, and you look over the terrain and you see this terrain, what are a couple things that you see that automatically say, I'm going to seize deer today?
You got to have a food source. Generally, in my experience, let's say it's not the rut, because there's no telling what could happen then. But not in a rut situation. If you're looking for a big buck, you got to have food. Obviously, there's got to be some water somewhere relatively close. They're not going to have to stand right over it, but and they don't seem to get very far away from cover if they get out of it at all.
Mm-hmm.
I found a lot of big deer, just by seeing a tine or a flick of a tail or something in a bush, and they'll stand up under a cedar tree or something and eat right there around it and never come out from under it. And so if you're looking for those big old smart bucks like that, a lot of times look in the thickest, nastiest stuff you can find, and take your time. I can't tell you or tell because you use them, but stress to people the importance of, or the advantage of, get a pair of 15 power binoculars. I think Swarovskis are the best. Put
Me
them on a
too.
put them on a tripod, and I cannot tell you how much more game you will find if you'll put a high powered set of binoculars on a tripod, sit down on your butt or on a stool, and just take your time and look at every square inch of a hillside. I tell people before I'd leave my boots at home and hunt barefoot before I'd leave my 15s at home. And I don't care if I'm hunting, whitetails in Kentucky or sheep in Alaska or coos deer in Mexico. Those
Hmm.
binoculars are with me everywhere I go, no matter what. And so when I sit down like that, there's always, and I don't really know how to explain it. If we were sitting there on the hill, I could show you here, but it's kind of back to that intuition thing. I think your eyes, or whatever you want to call it, sometimes are just drawn to different places, and it's just almost a subconscious thing after you've glassed, hundreds and hundreds of animals.
Hmm.
I think your mind almost develops a pattern where you're more likely to see them, and that's where you're drawn to. But so there's always, seems like a few spots that I'm like, oh, I can't wait to check that out, and I'll check out a few places on the hillside that look really good, and then if I don't find anything, I'll just go back and start, working my way across or up and down. And I hear a lot of guys talk about glassing patterns and gritting and all that, and I don't know that I don't really have a specific pattern I
I was
use.
just going to ask you that if you had a pattern.
No, I really don't.
Uh-huh.
I could tell you some cool thing that I do, but I really don't. I just kind of go where it feels good, and I do try to make sure that I cover everything,
Yeah.
uh, and usually two or three
Eventually.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and usually two or three times as long as I have time. But I don't. I don't really feel like I have any certain type of pattern other than just make sure you get it all done at one point or another. And the other thing too that um, go back and check places and try to glass them two or three times, because I can't tell you how many times I've picked up a deer and watched it for 5 seconds and it steps behind a bush, and
And
then
then you don't see it no more.
I don't
Yeah.
see it for 30 minutes. And so just because there wasn't something standing there when you went by it the first time, like, go back and check that stuff two, three, four times, and you'd be surprised a lot of times you'll look back a spot you just looked 2 minutes ago and there's three deer standing there.
Yeah. I
So
used to have a pattern. I used to do the old typewriter thing, start at the top or start at the bottom and just go left to right and just kind of work my way up,
yep,
or work my way down mostly. Um, and then over the years, I just, like you were saying, oh, that spot looks really good. That spot looks really good. That spot looks really good. And I kind of hit
yeah.
those spots first, and then I kind of,
Then
haphazardly go through the rest. But I don't know. It's worked for me thus far. I think you like you said, you kind of just develop a sense of where deer will like to be or elk like to be, and
yep. I
it
tell you
kind
the
of
other thing
just kind of
too that
works.
the other thing too that I've had happen several times that I've has made me start doing this is you walk over, the top of a hill, crest of a hill, and sit down and get all your stuff out the glass. I'll usually, if there's some thick stuff in front of me, pull up your 10 power binoculars and glass that first 200 or 300 yards in front of you with your 10s, because I don't know how many times we walked up and sat down and you're getting stuff out and clanging your tripod and making noise, and you'll
Hmm.
look up 70 yards down the hill, a buck will have stood up, see what the hell's going on. And so check close first, because more than likely, if there is something like that, you might not have but just a minute to look at it and decide if you want to shoot it or whatever. More than likely, a deer that's out there 1,500 yards, he'll be there in 30 more seconds. But there's been a lot of
Hmm.
times we got everything set up and got quiet, you look up and there's a deer standing right there. So, even if you can see 1,000 yards in every direction, look at 50 first.
Yeah.
So I
No, it makes perfect sense.
kind of check right around me and then go out farther. So
Cool. Yeah, I know. I know. Notice another thing that I started doing while glassing, and specifically in the evening, I get to a certain point in the evening where I know that if I see something out that far, I'm not going to be able to get to it. So I just
Right.
start progressively glassing closer to me, or at least within my effective range of getting to that animal before it gets too dark to even put a move on them.
Right.
And in the mornings, I don't really do the opposite. I mean, I still look close, but I do tend to look out a lot further.
Look farther when you know you got time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that does, there's no need wasting your time, trying to dig up something, a mile away if you've only got 15 minutes of shooting light left.
Mhm.
So yeah, that does make sense. Concentrate your time, what little time you have left, on trying to find something that you can make a move on.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
and like I said, I use the 15 by 56 Swarovskis on a tripod, and then I carry a set of the 10 by 42 rangefinder Swarovskis on my chest in a
Okay.
harness, and then I've got the 30 by 70 by 95 spotting scope that I keep in my pack, and I don't ever take it out until I find something that I want to look at closer. I don't try to glass or find stuff with the spotting scope.
I
Uh,
can't.
I
I
know a
can't
few
do it.
guys that do, but it doesn't work well for me. I'm actually waiting to get one of the new BTX eyepieces for it. Um,
Yeah.
a couple guys I've talked to that have got their hands on one already said those are unreal. So I'm pretty
I went and
excited
did a
about some
review
of
on
those.
them. I went
Did you like?
and did a review on them. I'm actually going to do a more extensive review. I'm supposed to get with the guys here at the Outdoorsman pretty
Oh yeah.
soon, and we're going to go through um, the BTX with the little spotting scope is
With the
actually the
55.
gig. Yeah, it's the gig, man. It's only 4 pounds,
Yeah.
and I mean, you see great. I was sitting at their shop and I was glassing. I don't know how many freaking miles away. I mean, probably 5 miles away, and I picked up a herd of javelina, and because
That's
they're in
insane.
Fountain Hills now, and I was like, you got to be shitting me.
That's
I
insane.
was like, yeah, and I was pretty impressed with that. It almost made me pull out the wallet right then and there.
Oh
But
yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
I'm
know,
just
man.
wanting to be able
My
to get
biggest thing is
one.
I
I'll
hate
pay
weight.
for it.
I've had a spotting scope for I don't know for however long. I sold it, and now I just got another one because I traded a guy a rifle for it, and I don't think it's been out of my house since I got it. I've had it for over a year.
Really?
Yeah, it's just sits. I don't know, man. I just hate carrying, and I'm not the type of guy that, like, if I see something that looks good, I'm not gonna be like, oh, I don't know, he's probably only a 160 and he's not a
Right.
170.
Right.
Not that kind of guy. So I'm like, he looks good. I'm going. It's just, I
Yeah,
don't
and
know.
if I'm hunting for
But
myself, I'm exactly the same way. And this kind of get off on another little subject for a minute. And this is a little bit of a, I don't really say it's a rant, but it's just a difference in people's motivations or their opinions. I have guys ask me all the time, say we're on a hunt somewhere and glass up this buck, and I say, look, here's a nice deer, what do you think about it? And they'll
mhm.
look at it and they'll say, well, what does he score? And I used to try to put the numbers to it and get it exactly and say, look, I think this deer is 170,
Right.
172 to 175, whatever, blah blah. And now I've gotten to where on most of the hunts, I just tell guys, look, I think he's a 170 class deer, whatever, 180 class deer, but if he makes you happy, let's go kill him. If you'll be satisfied with him, if he doesn't excite you or you don't think that that's what you want hanging on your wall, we'll move
Yeah.
on. And now there's some stuff, I do some of the high end commissioners and governors type tags, and those kind of guys, when they're paying
Yeah.
thousands and
They're
thousands,
expected.
they want, like I had a guy tell me last year, it was a governor's tag, and he said on the mule deer, he said, I forget what he told me now, like 26 mule deer that scored between 180 and 189, and he's got a couple over 190, and he said, I don't want another 180-inch mule deer, and he said, if he's 189 and 7/8, he said, I'm going to be pissed. He said, if he's 190 and an eighth, I'll be tickled to death. And he
Yeah.
said, 190 is the number. And so we hunted 6 or 7 days, and I found a buck, and he was right there on the line, and we looked and looked and looked and looked for forever at this deer, and I scored him every which way I could score him, and I told him, I said, I think he's between 192 and 195, but I said, you know, that's as close as because we were like 660 yards away. It was close
Yeah,
to the
how do they expect you to come up with a really, really accurate number, honestly, at that distance?
This deer was bedded, and we were looking at him on 70 power in that Swarovski, and I said, I'm pretty sure he's going to break 190. I think he's going to be close to 195. But I said, you look at him, and if he makes you happy, you shoot him. If not, if it's too close to call, we got the whole season to hunt. We'll keep going. And he ended up shooting. The deer was 194, so it worked out. But
Nice.
so in a situation like that, you know, I have to carry the big spot and scope. And I got on a deal in Alaska on a Dall sheep hunt. Same way, those sheep up there have to be
Yeah, well, that's a legality
full
thing.
curl or
Yeah.
a certain age. And I was able to age this ram because I had that spotting scope and was able to look at him close. But I guess back to like you said, if I'm just hunting for myself, and I'm the same way. I haven't got to kill enough big stuff. That's what people always say. Oh, I bet you've killed some giant deer, I haven't killed hardly anything. I mean, I've got a 170-inch mule deer, is the biggest mule deer I've ever killed, and a 330 something inch bull, and I'm not only good to pull the trigger, and so I'm still kind of, when I go hunt for myself, I have to kind of make myself hold off because I still get excited because I haven't killed that much stuff. I've killed a bunch of animals, whitetails in Tennessee and that kind of stuff, but as far as like big trophy animals, I haven't really killed a whole lot of big stuff at all. I killed a pretty big aoudad, but
Right.
I'm still in that deal. It's not very hard to get me excited when the gun's in my hand. So
I guess I
not
could say the same thing about myself too. I haven't killed a bunch of big
killed a bunch
stuff.
more than I have.
I've killed a bunch of stuff. I mean, I'm up in the 200 range for sure, but I got like just a crap ton of medium-sized animals, man.
Yeah,
I got an itchy trigger finger. I can't say no. Like if it's like if it excites me, I mean the only thing now that I feel like I can hold off on, like, and even then is whitetail, like Eastern whitetail.
Right. Yeah.
A 130 buck steps out. It's hard for me not to shoot them all.
But still,
It's
yeah.
like, yeah, but still, I should be holding out for 150s and 160s, but
Well, and I'm the same way with the whitetails, and I almost feel bad because I almost feel like I'm kind of betraying my upbringing or whatever you want to call it. I grew up on Eastern whitetails, and we hunted them just if the season was open, we hunted, and that was kind of my deal. And now, I mean, it almost sounds bad. I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but I've got to go do so much cool stuff and be a part of seeing so many big animals die, and big bulls and big mule deer and sheep. And I come home now, and my buddy's like, "Let's go deer hunting," and I'm like, "I don't know if I want to go, sit there and watch for, be lucky if a 100-inch whitetail steps out." And I don't know. The whitetails don't really excite me anymore. I drew a Kansas whitetail tag this year. I put in. I won't get into the whole thing, but basically in Kansas, to be eligible to draw a mule deer tag, you have to put in a
whitetail, yeah.
And so I drew a whitetail tag in Kansas, and I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're like, "Man, because I've got a bunch of ground, almost 80,000 acres leased in Kansas," and I said, "Oh man, I bet you're just gonna kill a giant." All that, and I said, honestly, I don't know if I'm gonna hunt. I've got some hunters coming, some whitetail hunters, so that's one thing. I'm sure not gonna step in front of paying clients and kill a big deer, but even if everybody gets done, I'm almost something like that. I'll go shoot a management deer or something that needs to be killed. But I don't know. The whitetails I killed a probably 150-inch buck in Texas last year. A freak deal, really. I was checking lion traps and jumped this buck up out of a patch of cactus. I actually shot him with a pistol, and it ended up being the biggest whitetail I've ever killed. So I don't know. I want to kill a really big mule deer. I'm putting in my time to draw either a Kansas mule deer tag or, I've been building points in Arizona and stuff. And that's probably aside from killing a sheep, I want to kill any one of the sheep. But probably my next thing on the list was I want to kill a really big mule deer, and I'll put my time in and draw a tag somewhere, and I'll go kill one. But I don't know. I like hunting, and I like hunting elk probably third best, but the sheep and the mule deer are what really.
Sheep hunting something different, man. It's a whole different.
you're either hooked or you're not. I mean, you either love it
Yeah.
or could care
Or
less about it. And I feel like if you
yeah.
love it, it's
Oh
a
my God. Freaking sheep and ibex. I haven't gone
uh,
mountain goat hunting yet, but shit, I put in 3 different states for mountain goat. Hopefully, eventually, I freaking draw. But
yeah, that's actually pretty high on my list right now because I feel like that's the pretty comparable to a sheep hunt, and that's actually something I feel like is fairly attainable for me
yeah,
to get to do a goat hunt. And you know, I'm all about the adventure and the danger and the mountain climbing and the almost
yeah,
dying and that kind of stuff. And they say mountain goat hunting is pretty extreme, so
yeah.
I do try to get on that here in the next couple of years while I'm still physically able. So.
Ah, come on, man. I got 15, I got 15 years on you almost.
Oh yeah,
I I think I could do it for another 10, 15 years for sure.
yeah.
But no, I mean, it's definitely something I want to do. I mean, it's just a matter of getting a tag. I don't think that I could. I don't know, unless something amazing happens to me and financially here in the next whatever. But everybody's like, oh, just save up and go, get a guaranteed tag or whatever. I'm like, fuck, man. I just
Yeah.
it's even the thought of it. Even if I could afford it, it's even the thought of paying that much money
Oh yeah.
for a
No.
tag is like I just can't do it, man.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I'm stealing something from my kids,
Well, with your drawing luck, you know, Mr. Ibex and Desert Sheep and Aoudad
Yeah,
and all, you'll draw one
hey, I've
pretty
been
quick.
putting in for, I've been playing the tag game for 20 some odd years. So,
It's about time.
some of these things started coming to fruition. Like this year, you were mentioning again a big desert muley. I have a really good potential to. I mean, the unit's not the greatest in the state, but I got a late season rifle tag. I got a rifle tag this year for mule deer
Yeah.
here in Arizona. So
There's
I
probably not a bad unit for that.
no, it's they're all very there's big deer in every unit, but
Yeah.
it's there's some units that you can pretty much guarantee you're gonna go kill a 180 or better.
Right.
This is not that unit, but there are big sons of bitches in there, and
Yeah.
I'm excited about it.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, you'll be
I've
I didn't
never
draw
I've
anything.
never once hunted mule deer in Arizona with a rifle.
Really.
Nope.
I've never hunted mule deer in
I've only
Arizona.
put in for coos deer, rifle coos deer. I've never even put in for mule. This is the first year I put in for. That's not true. I've put in for. I always put in like second choice for kaibab or whatever, but I
Right.
never draw
Something
that
never
shit.
draw. Yeah. Yeah.
Something I'm never gonna draw. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, no, it's my first time ever going. I always because I'm like I don't think to put them in because the earlier rifle hunts aren't very good. They're real tough hunts and it's still kind of hot and unless you're hunting up north and then it's not a
Right.
desert that it's not a desert buck. Um, you know, and I always get to chase them with the bow and that's usually what I do in January is I switch from coos deer to mule deer. Um, so it's never been a thing for me, but I'm like this year, you know what? I'm going to put in for this because they kind of move the dates around, they move some units around, and the unit that I'm hunting is closed to archery. So it has been historically been open to archery, but last year and this year it's close to archery. So like it's just me and like 20, or I don't know if it's 20 tags, 20 or 25 tags total.
Yeah.
So, it's just me and a few other guys out there running around with rifles and no archery hunters for the it was last year or this year. So it should be a
Yeah. That should
good
be a
hunt,
good
man. I'm
trip.
excited.
Yeah. When is that? November, December? Okay.
December 15th or 13th to the
Okay.
31st, something like that. Yeah. Yeah. So that should be cool. I'm excited about that.
Oh yeah.
And plus it's close to my house, which is always better. I can operate out of home.
Oh yeah.
I'm not
Yeah,
going to be away from the family.
that is nice to be able to. I just got back yesterday from up in eastern Kentucky. Went up there and took a bunch of salt in and stuff. Actually packed it in on horses. I've got some elk hunters there in Kentucky and this year, and as much as I don't like hunting there, just because of the terrain and the just kind of the whole thing doesn't fit my style of hunting. It's really really thick
Thick. Yeah.
hardwoods, and it's really I don't know. It just doesn't really fit my style, and I don't care for it much. But I've got a couple of really good clients that love hunting there, and so I keep doing it with them. And I've got two this year. But that is the one thing I do like about it is it's 3 hours from my house, and I'm not used to getting to to hunt and then drive home that night, or just be able to run up there and check a trail camera or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that is nice being able to to hunt out close to your house or close to your family or whatever. So because I spend a lot of time. Sometimes I think this season coming up, I'll leave here about the 5th of September, and I probably won't be home till the middle of November, and then only for about a week, and then I'll be back gone basically till probably March or April, and so it gets it gets long, and
Yeah. How many days do you say you're in the field?
oh
Hey.
gosh, um, I don't know. I've never really figured it up. I know this year, and I wasn't thinking when I was doing my schedule, and I got a little bit too carried away with it. But we start hunting in Kansas on the 11th of September, and I have hunts booked or days hunting booked from the 11th of September to I think the 7th of November every single day in 4 different states. So there's 3 different times when I'm going to have to literally hunt until mid-afternoon, drive a couple hours to an airport, fly somewhere else, and start hunting the next morning. And like I said, I did not mean to do it that way. I wasn't paying attention when I was booking stuff, but from the 11th of September to about the 6th of November. Now, obviously, hopefully, there will be instances where we kill out early, and
Right.
I have a day or two in between. But theoretically, I've got a hunt somewhere to be hunting every day from the 1st of September to mid-November.
Unreal.
So, and then I didn't really plan much for the middle to the end of November. I'm entering in a big roping in Las Vegas in December, and so I was wanting to be able to come home and rope for a couple weeks in November, and then I'll go back to Kansas the end of November, and then one of my good clients actually bought the Alberta Minister's mule deer tag.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
so we're gonna go up there the first part of December and do that, and then I'll leave there and go to Vegas and rope for a week or two, and then head south to Mexico to hunt sheep and mule deer. I got 4 of the Tiburon Island desert sheep tags this year, and eight
Wow.
and 8 mule deer tags down there. So we'll be down there most of the January and February hunting deer and sheep.
Awesome. Sweet, man.
So
Well, that's all I got for you. Thanks for, I wanted to, thank you for coming on and
yeah, no
sharing
problem.
some knowledge with us and whatnot. I'm sure you and we talk all the time. We'll get you on again and,
Yeah, anytime.
like to hear after you're done with the season,
Yeah,
see what you did.
for sure, man. Anytime.
Cool. Thanks.
You bet, man. Good luck this year.
Thank you.